Okay, welcome back. So this is the third video in a series. Go back and watch the others if you haven't yet. Cool. So the where we left off with setting. We created this function in the home controller. We tested it with Postman and got back our number correctly. We found some code paths that were wrong. We found some bugs, and we got to see using tools to try to debug and figure out what's going on. And we used the debugger, we used Postman, we used Google, we used all these different things to get us to our answers, which is great. All right, so what we need to do now is we need to actually interface it with the blog itself. The blog itself is written in Jekyll. So go into my repos folder, and I actually have it pulled down because I've obviously been working on it a little bit while I was doing all these videos. So we will not git, but we need to go into it, and I called it. Oh, that's right. So cd that, and so we need to pull an update because I've done some stuff on GitHub directly. So I need to pull down this, and then in good fashion, we now are adding a new feature. So we need to create a branch for that new feature. So let's do that. So we're going to do git checkout -b, and we're going to call it hits. So that'll be our new branch. So now you can see we switched to branch hits, and now we can begin kind of working through some of the stuff. So I'm going to open up my other IDE. You'll find that when you're working on especially front-end stuff and back-end stuff and database stuff, you're going to have so many windows open, and it can become quite an adventure of trying to get all this stuff set up correctly. Okay, so just to really quickly go through kind of what I've got going on, this is the layout for my post. And I've tied in a little bit of Angular just to help me out. This is not an Angular site. This doesn't use it as its main feature, but that's one of the beauties of Angular is you can just use it for the tiniest little pieces. You can do it just to control a little widget or even just a single button if that's what you really want it to do. Another thing to note is that Jekyll uses these double brackets for its template replacement, but that's also Angular's default. So there was a clear conflict there. So since I'm using Jekyll in its entirety, but I'm using Angular just a little bit, it's better to change Angular to switch to using a different syntax. So you can do that with interpolate provider here, and that's what I've done. So I've set the start symbol to be a square bracket exclamation point, and then the end symbol to be an exclamation point square bracket. So now Angular doesn't use the double brackets, it uses this instead. So that's right here. So you can see here I've got ng controller, post controller as controller, and then I am using controller.hits from my Angular controller by using this syntax instead. So you can alter the syntax of the different of the way that Angular behaves, to fit what you're trying to do. The other thing to note is that you can also intertwine them. This is really great technology to use as well. So what's going to happen here? This is an ng. I'm doing ng init because I need to get data from Jekyll. So usually you wouldn't use an init, you would just initialize it inside your controller. But because I'm using Jekyll, Jekyll's going to go through and it's going to replace all these things with these double braces or double brackets or whatever. So we need to capture that in a way that will save it to our controller as soon as the page loads. And there's a small side effect to this that we have to deal with in order to properly get the page ID, because we're doing it in this backwards way. If think about the timing. The actual Angular controller is going to instantiate, and then it's going to deal with the page. So if we were to run things immediately, then it would not pick up the page ID yet, but then it will once, once this has been set. So what I've done is I've created a page init function. So this is a little bit hacky, but I'm interfacing two technologies that weren't necessarily designed to go together. I mean, they definitely can, obviously, but you have to kind of play with them a little bit. So sometimes mixing technologies together is great, but also difficult. So in here, what will happen is Jekyll will replace this with an actual page ID string, which is great. And then this, controller page init function will fire, which then kicks off all the logic inside the controller of Angular, which will then call the Rails backend, and then that returns, and you'll see a like count on the page, or a hit count. Okay, so that's the little bit of background information for here. As you can see, I stubbed out some stuff trying to get this to work, or trying to get other things, other elements on the page, but really all we're focused on right now is just this. So this should say 5 views, 4 views, 6 views, whatever. So let's go ahead and just take a look at what this looks like right now. So we're running now. Jekyll serves at this URL, so we need to Chrome, and we will go here, and now you can see the posts as I have them at the moment, and we'll just go into one of these, and you can see it's rendering the views, but it's not actually, it doesn't have a number yet. And if we look in the inspector, we see we got an error, and the server responded with the status of 5. So the node server that I have running this at the moment is not working correctly, and I also wanted some persistence, and Node's just not really the right technology for it. It could be with a little bit of work, but since I want to do some a little more advanced features down the line, I figured Rails is going to be a better technology to do this in, so that's why I'm redoing it. Plus it just wasn't working in the beginning, or else you'd see a number here. So okay, so let's start wiring this in. We've got so I just put, because we're dealing with really small stuff, all I did was put this inside of an Angular controller at the moment, just one file. So we're declaring the module, we're doing our config, and we're doing all of our controller logic and stuff right inside the one file. Eventually you'll want to split this out into multiple files, and we probably will, but at the moment we're not. So I'm not really going to go into how Angular works too much. Again, I'm taking very language agnostic approaches to a lot of this stuff. So I'm not going to cover the languages themselves. If you want to learn some of the languages, there are great resources out there. There are great courses out there, and stuff like that. So this is more just me working with technologies than simple tutorials. Okay. So we have our page init, which is a function that takes the page ID. Now the page ID is the way that Jekyll does it, it has slashes in it, so it's going to look like a URL. So what I did was I'm using this encode URI component to URL encode the page ID, and then we're going to send it across. So that's great. But we need to update this path to now use the new path that we set up in Rails instead, which is the URL that it's going to use, hit, and then the encode URI component with the page ID. Sorry about that. And it actually, are we encoding this twice? It does look like we are encoding this twice, and that's not what we want. We just want the page ID itself. So that was a little bit of ridiculousness that we didn't need. Okay, Also, the next thing is we also need to point to our testing endpoint instead of our real endpoint. So basically we need to point to this at the moment. So we're going to replace what we have here with that. Okay, so now that we've saved that, then we go back to our test, and should have done that with this open. And you'll see access control allow origin not present on the controller, therefore not allowed access. This makes sense. This is cores working, so we need to get around cores. Okay, how to get around cores in Rails. I know there's a really great gem for it. Let's see, Rails cores support. It's a really great, I think rack cores. That's a great module. So to install the gem, you just put this in your gem file. So we're going to go to nitrous and open the gem file, and we're going to throw that into there, and then we do actually need to stop the server, and then we need to run bundle install again because we have added something new, so it needs to go ahead and pull down all the code for that and then build it into our project. Alright, so now that it's done that, then we should be able to, well, we need to follow the rest of the directions. In config RU, that's for rack. So we want Rails because we're doing a Rails site. So put something in the code, something like the code below, into your config application RB for your Rails application. Okay, so we're going to grab the code, copy it, and then we're going to place it right inside of our application RB file in our config. So this holds a bunch of configuration stuff for us. I'm just going to plop it right here in the middle. And then we want to see allow origins, resource, get post options, and we want to add the put as well, just to make sure that that's being covered, because that's what our route is. Oh, and that's the other thing, is this was still doing a get request, and we wanted to actually do a put. Okay, so now that we've done that, we will run the server again, and we'll give this another shot. So interfacing with multiple like front ends and back ends, multiple languages, you have to do a lot of context switching, a lot of flipping back and forth, a lot of looking things up, a lot of getting things to all be tied together, turning on servers, turning off servers, updating things. There's so much going on. You have to be constantly thinking about the code path and how does the internet work and stuff like that. All right, great. So we have, it looks like it worked. Okay, so it worked the first time. Does it work again? So we have one view, and now we have two views. So there's a little bit of a lag, but you know what? I'm happy with that. I'm okay that it took a second to kind of load in those views. That's not a big deal. This is great. This is a great update. Everything just kind of lined up already. Great. So let's test it on the other pages. Boom. It's working. Okay, awesome. That's exactly what we want. So, good stuff. It's successfully working. Our logic was all good. Our code was all good. But now we need to deploy it. So, deploying it to the blog is not hard, which we'll go ahead and do, but deploying the Rails application is going to take a little bit longer because I use, you have to get it all the way up to the server, and you have to get all the backend stuff set up and all that stuff. So I will definitely be covering that, but that will have to be in a separate video. So for the time being, let's deploy this. And my server that serves all the videos is videos.quarantine.com. And then the videos are actually coming from port 80. So I'm setting this up for port 8080 so that we just don't have port conflicts since I'm running more than one application off of the server. So that's good. So the next thing we need to do here is really just push it up. So I'm going to show, so now that we have it in our branch, right, we need to get, and we're going to add everything, git, commit, and we're going to say updated to work, updated hits to work with Rails backend. And then we're going to, there's two ways to do this. I'm going to show this one because most people don't. Git push origin and then hits. So we're going to push it to the hits branch on the origin, which doesn't exist, but it's going to create it for us. And you'll see that by saying new branch hits equals hits. So if we go back up to the blog, here, then you will see that there is now a hits branch. And I did it this way. I could have done it all from the command line really quickly and easily, but I wanted to show pull requests. So when you're working with multi-projects in GitHub and you know, in a team, then you're usually going to have to do some pull requests. So pull requests have some great features. So you click the pull request button and you tell it you want it to go to master from your hits. Now you can actually send this to other people as well. So if you have a fork of somebody else's project, this is how you set up pull requests for them to take the code back into their project. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say create the pull request. Now, the pull request, it's going to check and make sure that it can be automatically merged. As long as it can be automatically merged, it will be, you can do everything from GitHub. If it can't, then you need to do things from the command line, because you're going to have to manually look at all the conflicts. The most interesting view in all of this, there's the conversation, so people can have discussions about what's going on. Commits will show you the list of commits, but files changed is by far the best. Oh, look at this. See? And this is great. It's showing I made a mistake. I did get videos instead of get video or put video, but it also shows like things that I changed. Like I removed the question mark and all of that, and I added in that because that's changing the route around to use the newer route. So wow. Okay, so that's correct, but I do need to make a small change. So in order to make the change, I'm going to do that right here on GitHub. So we're going to go to hits, and we're going to open, where's it, layouts, post, no, that's not it, it's in the code file, index.js. And I'm going to add, we need to edit, and then I'm going to add the missing S that I have on here, right? And then I'm going to commit that. And now if we go back to our pull requests, we look at the files changed, it now matches. So it auto updates your pull requests as you work on them. So don't make the pull request until you actually need to. But if you discover little errors while you're doing these comparisons, you don't have to like cancel the pull request and make a new one. Just do the little updates that you need to. Okay. So now that it's actually been opened, we've taken a look at it, and we agree that that's what we want to do, and we've also tested it. Then we want to merge, and you just say confirm merge, and that's it. Now it's on now it's live. Now it's in the actual master branch, and because we no longer need this hits branch, we're going to go ahead and just delete it. Okay, so that's a lot. That was interfacing the Angular with the Angular front end with Jekyll. We used different, um, different markers other than the two curly braces for Angular. We then also connected it to the backend successfully. We tested it, um, and we got successes. We made sure that it works on multiple pages. We put all that work onto a separate branch. We pushed the branch up to a new branch on GitHub. We then created a pull request to pull it in. We did a comparison. We edited the comparison, and then we pulled it all into master and deleted the extra branch. We have done a lot in this video, and we are a lot closer to getting this all working and all put together. So the only thing that we need to do now is just deploy the Rails backend, and hopefully things will just magically start working. So, um, great. Okay. Well, I think that's a great number of things for this video, and I will see you guys next time.